3 in the morning, wide awake, staring at the ceiling like it owes you an apology. If you're over 60 and you know that feeling, and I mean really know it, the kind of knowing that comes from months of it, years of it, I want to tell you something that nobody in a white coat has probably said to your face. It's not your fault. And it's not in your head. And the thing your doctor gave you to fix it might be making it worse. I'm 84 years old. I was a registered nurse for over 3 decades. I've watched more people be handed the wrong solution to the right problem than I can count. And sleep is at the top of that list. So let me tell you what's actually happening inside your body at 3 in the morning. Because once you understand it, really understand it, you stop blaming yourself and you start doing something about it. Your hypothalamus, that's the part of your brain that runs your internal clock, starts to physically shrink as you get older. Nobody tells you that. It's not in the pamphlet they hand you at your annual checkup, but it happens. And when it shrinks, your melatonin production drops dramatically. By the time you're past 60, your body is making somewhere around 70% less melatonin than it did when you were 30. 70%. That's not a small adjustment. That's like trying to run your car on fumes and wondering why it keeps stalling. Now here's where it gets interesting and a little bit infuriating. Most people know melatonin exists. They've seen it on the shelf at the pharmacy. So they pick up a bottle, 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, take it every night, think they're solving the problem. I had a neighbor. I'll call her Margaret, because I won't use her real name when I'm talking about something this personal. She was 72, sharp as a tack, avid gardener, the kind of woman who knew the name of every plant in a 5-block radius. She started having trouble sleeping about 4 years ago. Her daughter bought her those gummy melatonin supplements, 10 milligrams each. Margaret was taking one every night, sometimes 2 if the first one didn't seem to work. 3 months later, she called me, said she felt foggy all day, said the sleep was still broken, said she was more tired in the morning than when she went to bed. And she was. Because here's what the label on that bottle doesn't tell you. Clinical research, including work out of MIT that goes back decades, shows that the effective dose for adults over 50 is around 0.3 milligrams. Not 5, not 10, 0.3. The supplements on the shelf are dosed somewhere between 10 and 30 times higher than what your body actually needs. And what happens when you flood a receptor with more of something than it can use? It stops responding. It desensitizes. And then nothing works. Not the supplement, not your own biology, nothing. Margaret wasn't taking a sleep aid. She was sabotaging herself every single night and had no idea. I told her to throw the bottle away. She was skeptical. She came back to me 6 weeks later looking like herself again. But here's the thing I haven't told you yet. The thing I kept turning over in my mind long after that conversation with Margaret. Because it pointed to a much bigger problem than dosage. The melatonin wasn't even the root of what was keeping her awake. Or you, or the millions of people lying in the dark at 3 in the morning, convinced something is wrong with them. And that's the part that took me a while to fully understand, even with everything I knew from nursing. That 3 a.m. wake-up. And if you experience it, you know exactly what I'm describing. You open your eyes and you are fully, completely, almost aggressively awake. That's not anxiety. It's not a bad mattress. It's not that you nap too long in the afternoon. It's cortisol. Your adrenal glands produce a surge of cortisol that naturally peaks between 2 and 4 in the morning as part of your body's preparation to wake you up for the day. In a younger body with stronger hormonal regulation, that surge is gradual. It eases you awake at 7 or 8. In a body over 60, the regulation is off. The surge comes too early, too sharp, and it yanks you out of sleep like someone pulled a fire alarm. The prescription response to this is usually a sleeping pill, Ambien, Trazodone, sometimes something older like Benadryl or a similar antihistamine. I'm not going to pretend those things don't work in the short term. They do, for some people. But what they do to your sleep architecture is a different story. REM sleep, the stage where your brain consolidates memory, processes emotion, and runs what I think of as its overnight immune maintenance, gets suppressed by all 3 of those medications. So yes, you sleep, but the sleep you get isn't the sleep your brain needs. You wake up groggy. You wake up foggy. You feel like the hours didn't count, because at the level that matters, they didn't. I watched this happen with a colleague, a doctor I worked with for years. I'll just say she was an internist. Brilliant woman. She could explain absolutely anything. When she retired and her schedule collapsed, her sleep fell apart completely. She put herself on Trazodone, said it worked fine, but I ran into her about 2 years later, and she looked 10 years older than she had at retirement. Said her memory felt unreliable. Said she'd walk into a room and forget why she was there. She chalked it up to age. I don't know if it was the Trazodone or just biology. I can't say that. But I know what the research says about suppressing REM in an aging brain over years, and it's not reassuring. The part she didn't know, the part her own doctor hadn't mentioned, was that there was a treatment with a better long-term track record than any of those pills. And it wasn't a new drug. It wasn't expensive. It was a structured method for retraining how your brain relates to sleep. CBTI, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia. Mayo Clinic recommends it. Harvard research supports it. It outperforms sleeping pills in long-term clinical trials, not by a little, by a significant margin. And here's what stops me cold every time I say this out loud. The VA made it into a free app. It's sitting there, available, free, and the majority of people over 60 who are losing years of sleep have never heard their doctor say those 4 letters once. Not once. But there's something even bigger than all of this, something I want you to sit with for a minute. Because until I understood this, I didn't truly grasp the stakes of what we're talking about. Your brain cleans itself at night. There is an actual waste clearance system. Researchers call it the glymphatic system, and it only runs at full capacity during deep, slow-wave sleep. It flushes out metabolic waste, cellular debris, and specifically a protein called beta amyloid. If you know anything about Alzheimer's disease, you know that name. Beta amyloid plaques building up in the brain is one of the defining features of that disease. And researchers at Washington University found that people over 60 who sleep poorly carry about 30% more of those proteins than people who sleep well. 30% more. Not a little more. Not a marginal difference. 30%. And here's the part that's hard to absorb. This damage accumulates silently, for years. You don't feel it happening. Your memory feels mostly fine. You function. You go about your day. And all the while, every night of fragmented sleep is leaving a little more residue behind that the glymphatic system didn't have time to clear. I don't say this to frighten you. I say it because I am 84 years old, and I have watched enough people lose themselves to that disease to know that you deserve to understand what the stakes actually are. You deserve honest information, not managed information, not softened information, the real thing. So let me tell you what actually helps, not a list, just what I've learned. Your bedroom temperature matters more than most people realize. The National Sleep Foundation says 65 to 67 degrees. That's roughly right. But here's the part that gets left out. Your extremities need to be warm for your core temperature to drop the way it needs to for deep sleep. Cold feet keep you awake. And I know how that sounds because I used to think it sounded a little silly too. But there's a Swiss study, peer-reviewed, that looked at exactly this. Wearing socks to bed shortened the time it took people to fall asleep by an average of 15 minutes. 15 minutes. That's more than most over-the-counter sleep aids reliably deliver. I wear socks to bed. I have for years. Walter makes fun of me for it. I told him to try it. He does too now. The timing of your last meal matters more than most people know. Your cortisol surge is already working against you between 2 and 4 in the morning. If you've eaten within an hour or two of going to bed, your digestive system is still running, your metabolism is still elevated, and you are handing that cortisol surge more fuel than it needs. 3 hours between your last meal and your bedtime, at minimum. This is one of the simplest adjustments you can make, and one of the most consistently effective ones. No prescription required. And if you want to use magnesium, not as a prescription, just as a mineral your body likely needs more of after 60. Magnesium glycinate, somewhere between 200 and 400 milligrams, 90 minutes before you go to bed. Not an hour before, not right before, 90 minutes. It's not a sedative. It helps your nervous system down-regulate so that sleep can actually find you. Worth a conversation with your doctor. Now about those hours, because this one I had to genuinely unlearn myself. I spent years chasing 8 hours. Walter used to tease me about it, said I'd set the alarm back 15 minutes if I thought it would get me closer to 8. I'd wake up from 7.5 hours feeling completely fine and convince myself I hadn't slept enough because the number wasn't right. NIH data on adults over 60 shows something that genuinely surprised me when I first sat down and read it carefully. 7 to 7.5 hours with high sleep efficiency, meaning most of that time you are actually asleep, not just lying there reviewing your problems, performs better cognitively and physically than 8 or 9 hours with a lot of wakefulness sandwiched in. Spending too long in bed when you're not sleeping doesn't add to the rest. It does the opposite. It teaches your brain to associate the bed with frustration, with wakefulness, with the particular misery of lying there waiting, which is the exact pattern that CBTI is designed to reverse. And one more thing. Because it connects everything I've been saying, and it almost never comes up. 1 week. 7 nights of poor sleep after 60 can raise your insulin resistance to pre-diabetic levels, regardless of how carefully you've been eating. Endocrinologists who study this have started saying that the connection between sleep deprivation and diabetes is stronger than the connection between sugar and diabetes. Stronger. And I wonder how many people have been quietly disciplining themselves at every single meal, cutting carbs, watching their numbers, feeling genuinely confused about why their fasting glucose keeps creeping in the wrong direction. And the answer was never on their plate. It was in their bedroom, in what was or wasn't happening at 3 a.m. I have patients I cared for over 30 years of nursing who I think about when I think about this. People who did everything right, who ate carefully, walked every day, took their medications, and still declined in ways that never made complete sense to me at the time. I think about them differently now. I wonder what their nights looked like. I wonder if anyone ever asked. Sleep is not a luxury. It is not a nice to have. It is the maintenance cycle for everything else you do. Every pill you take, every mile you walk, every careful choice at the grocery store. It all works better. It all counts more when you are sleeping the way your body needs to sleep. And the version of you that wakes up at 75, at 80, at 84, still knowing where you are, still thinking clearly, still able to be present for the people who need you, that version of you is being built right now, one night at a time. You have not been failing at sleep. You have been given the wrong tools and told the wrong story. That changes tonight. If something I said today made you think of someone, a friend, a spouse, a parent, who is lying awake at 3 a.m, wondering what is wrong with them, share this with them. And leave me a comment below. Tell me what's been hardest for you. Is it the waking up in the night? The trouble falling asleep in the first place? The feeling that nothing works anymore? I read these. I want to know. And if you want to keep having this conversation, subscribe. These are the things I wish I had known 30 years ago. I'm not keeping them to myself.